at this stage, the word iconic has been used quite a bit to describe the Afri Famine Walk. I suppose it's with a degree of sadness that we can't be gathered today in Lewisburg and in the Dula Valley to walk together, but we are joined together by the power of technology. And I, for one, am grateful to be able to connect with friends, new and old, and you're all very welcome. And it does feel like Afri isn't just a community, but it's also a family. It's a family of people deeply committed to social justice and people power. And I think given all that's going on in the world today, those themes have never been more relevant. And one man that has been keeping the flame alive since, I believe, 1988, and he hasn't aged a day, is Joe Murray, who is the Afri coordinator. And big welcome to Joe. I'm just wondering how you're feeling today, Joe, with not being in Mayo as has been a ritual for you every year.
Well, first of all, Goramila Maigut, Rory, to you for bringing us all together in this virtual reality here. And Céad Míle Fáilte Riv Gachtainna, that's to everyone who's tuned in. Yeah, it's a really strange thing, Rory. I've said it to a number of people. We couldn't have imagined back in 1988 when we had the first famine walk in Dulac that some 33 years later we would be confined to our sitting rooms and doing the walk in a virtual sense rather than being able to be out and walking and in the way that we have done it for the past so many years. That video there, as you said, is a very powerful reminder of what has happened in just some elements of that past history. We saw a lot of people there. Desmond Tutu, who appropriately is the inspiration for the entire famine walk. It was at a talk that he gave in Sean McDermott Street that the idea of the famine walk came about. Don Mullen was then director of Afri. He instigated and launched the first famine walk in 1988 as a result of that amazing talk by Desmond Tutu in Sean McDermott Street. So yeah, strange feeling of unreality, Rory, I suppose, but also a sense of, I suppose, gratitude that we've been able to stay on the road for so long, the long and winding road. It has been a long and winding road. And a sense of, gratitude for the amazing people that have walked with us and with whom we have walked in solidarity. I always say this walk is about memory, very important. We remember our famine dead. It's also about an expression of compassion, and that, as you say, is a much needed dimension in our world today. But it's also solidarity, and solidarity is a really important part of it. And, so for me, the walk joins all those dots: compassion, memory, and solidarity, and therefore it's something very special. And yeah, I miss being in the Dulac Valley today.
Yeah, it's like, how do you feel at this moment? Have you a sense of sadness, or is this the fact that we can gather online helping to kind of capture some of that community energy? And I mean, it's amazing to see the comments coming in on the screen. We've got Donegal, we've got right over to Virginia in the US, we've got London, more Dublin, we've got Aberystwyth in Wales. Let me see what else we have here. Another dub. We have Troy in New Jersey. Hello to Mary Beth and Bob. We've got St. Paul, Minnesota. I mean, the list goes on here, Joe. There's Cumbria. In fact, what I'm really seeing from this is that the Famine Walk is a global community, as are the Irish people a global people.
Yeah, well, that's extraordinary for me to hear that and to see that, Rory. When Lisa Patton, actually, our former administrator, first suggested this at a board meeting a few months ago, I couldn't foresee how it could happen. And then after you launched your great book, Hitching for Hope, in the same manner, began to see a possibility around this. And now to be here and to see people joining us from all over Ireland and all over the world is astonishing, really, and it's very heartening. And as you say, I think what it says is that this is a bigger thing than any of us. You know, some of us were there at the beginning, but it has grown into something incredible. Extraordinary people have gathered around the concept, the idea, but I think most of all what it represents, which is, you know, really about, we cannot forget our history. We cannot repeat the mistakes of our history, and we have a great need for solidarity. Seeing that during the pandemic in our own country, the great solidarity that's been shown among communities, we need to stretch this outside ourselves, and really we've got to stretch it around the world. And you know, that's I think what the Famine Walk represents to many people.
Absolutely. Joe, if I was to ask you, you know, 2 or 3 highlights from over those many years, what might come to mind?
Well, there's a number of highlights, Rory. It's very hard to single any of them out, but you couldn't overlook Desmond Tutu. You know, an extraordinary man, the Afri's patron, and he came there to that valley in the west of Ireland, and he, as usual, was a beacon of light, which he is in the world. One of my sons recently said, "You should never meet your hero," but in this case, I did, and he lived up to expectations and even exceeded them. So that's certainly one. You know, John Pilger, and that great phrase that we're one great family of resistance. It's a powerful phrase. My Tête le Desma from the Philippines, you know, saying that the coffin ships are back. You know, which was a sad reality. The Choctaw, amazing that link, which again has come to the fore. And you know, we that act of generosity by the Choctaw in 1847 is now being returned by Irish people, which is a fantastic thing to see. It's the completing of the circle, as Gary White there used to call it. You know, so that was fantastic. The Maya people from Guatemala, that's something that stays in my memory. They were so respectful, so appreciative, so, you know, so humble and so wonderful. I remember they kissed the ground when they came to the valley, and they said, "When we walk this valley, we were walking with the spirits of your ancestors." Lisa Lamb singing The West Awake, and Declan O'Rourke with Connacht Orphan, which is a most powerful song. It's on actually our Famine Walk CD, in fact. You know, moments of magic, moments of sadness, moments of recalling tragedy, of being with people who are living through tragedy, and then moments of exhilaration through music. Too numerous to mention. Ronnie Drew, Christy Moore, Damien Dempsey, just so many. Our own Rog Whelan, whom we'll hear from later on, and Emer Lynham. Just that blend, and I think that's what makes it something special, is that it brings so many elements together, so many elements: community, walking, solidarity, memory. It's a rich tapestry of emotion. There's something viscerally right about doing such a thing. And we hope to do it again this year, if we can, later this year. But certainly we will resume next year if we're able to. I see Sean Deegan from Sao Paulo, a great friend of mine, sending in a message, which is fantastic. He was a board member of Afri many years ago. So like things like that just warm your heart.
Yeah, it's amazing that people here in Brazil and the US and France and all over. There's somebody in Italy. Feel free to share any memories of the Famine Walk over the years. Joe, myself and others will be looking at those as we go. Joe, do you want to say a few words just about the funders and supporters of the Famine Walk over the years?
Yeah, well, we've had so many, Rory, and thanks to every one of them, individuals and organisations, and among them has been Trócaire, and it was great to have Cuiva send a message of support and solidarity. Trócaire is a great organisation with whom we are closely affiliated, and you know they have supported us generously over the years. Concern also support us. I suppose it's not just the organisations. Irish Aid also, we're grateful for that support, but it's the support of individuals, people who turn up year after year to continue to do the walk, who get sponsorship, who travel from long distances. We've had people really from all over the world. In recent years, we've had a group who have come from Germany, and I think they're actually tuned in tonight, generously supported the event and have been very moved by the experience that they have gained. And I suppose that's something to say to people, is that there's nothing like the actual experience of the walk. This is incredible to be part of this virtual event, but there's nothing like getting your feet on the ground and being out there in that extraordinary, beautiful, breathtaking valley in Dúlac in County Mayo and walking the walk. I suppose to some extent tonight we're talking the talk, but there's nothing like combining that with spectacular, rugged beauty of that part of County Mayo and all the other elements that come in, as well as the experience of walking. We all are concerned about the Sustainable Development Goals and achieving those goals, and we're all at one in those. This event brings up so many issues: sustainability, climate change, biodiversity. Claire Grady-Walsh will be talking later, and one of the issues that it was Claire that brought it to my attention, that among all the elements that were involved in An Gorta Mór was an environmental disaster. The fact that we became dependent on one variety of potato. Of 2,000 varieties, we became dependent on one. And when that was struck by blight, the entire crop was wiped out. And we know what happened. 1 million people died. 1.5 million were forced to emigrate. So we need to learn the lesson of that. We need to save our biodiversity. We're in UN reports tells us now that we have unprecedented damage done to our biodiversity. So we need to turn that around. We can do it as individuals in our own back gardens. We don't have to lawn mow to the roots of the grass. We can leave margins. We can create wild spaces wherever that is possible. So let's do our bit to preserve biodiversity as well.
I hope your lawn is growing nice and wild there in Dublin, Joe. It's hopefully turning into a little jungle, Rory, it's full of bees.
Well, it's turning into a nice little, on one side we have wildflowers, and on the other side we have potatoes and carrots and onions and food growing. So food and wildness. And we all need a wild corner in our garden and wherever we can create it.
Absolutely. So thanks for your patience. Thanks for all your messages. I'll try and highlight some of them. Lots more coming in. People in West London, Galway City. Hello, Simon, Ian, Sean. Everybody's very welcome here tonight. We're going to be hearing from Claire O'Grady-Walsh, talking about food sovereignty and seed sovereignty. And then we're going to have the magician, maestro, violin player and wise man, Colin McAnumra. Not that anybody is any wiser than anybody else in tonight's forum. I think there's a lot of wisdom in the room, including those of you in the comments. I know there's a lot of experts on many of these issues among us here tonight. And then we're going to be having Donna Vuma, who is a member of MASI, the Movement of Asylum Seekers in Ireland. And we have wonderful youth student, climate activist Grania Malone from County Offaly, Raj Whelan and Paul O'Toole. So we've a full schedule. I'm just wondering, many of these issues, people can get kind of a little bit overwhelmed by the scale and magnitude when we talk about injustice and suffering. Where do you see signs of hope personally on a personal level?
Well, I do see hope, Rory. And, over the past 33 years, there were some bleak global situations that we faced. For example, when I got involved first, the whole issue of apartheid was a major issue in South Africa. And it was in that context that we invited Desmond Tutu to Ireland. He came eventually when he was given his passport. If you can imagine, his passport was taken from him by the South African government at that time. But when he eventually got his passport back, he accepted our invitation and came to Ireland and spoke incredibly movingly about the whole issue of apartheid. And some years later, apartheid was dismantled. The story of East Timor, which also featured on the Famine Walk, Tom Hyland was a leader at one stage, and I hope Tom might be looking in from Delhi at the moment. East Timor seemed to be an intractable, absolutely impossible situation. People like Tom around the world just didn't give up, but more importantly, the people of Timor didn't give up, and they achieved their freedom as well. When we started this walk, there was a conflict in full flow in Northern Ireland. That has been brought to an end. So sometimes the things that seem impossible become possible. I think Mandela said something like, things are only impossible until they are achieved. And so we just keep on believing, we keep on walking. And I suppose the symbol of the famine road is significant, that we just keep walking. We do it year after year. It's not about the destination, it's about the walking, about the keeping the light burning, about just refusing to give up on what we believe in, on bringing about the change that is necessary. And hopefully, in this pandemic, when people have had time to stop and think that we need a new reality, and let's hope we can create a new reality coming from this pandemic. And I think there are reasons for hope, even in the sadness and the restrictions and all that has been part of the pandemic. We also have this kind of healing of the planet.
Thank you, Joe.